It was another quiet night at the office. No phone calls, no messages, nothing but junk mail and overdue bills to keep me company. Seems nobody wants to hire a real private dick anymore, a professional like me. A guy who does the detective work nobody else wants to do. A guy who wears hats and walks around in a black and white world. I began contemplating a more profitable line of work, like politics.
We are the show. You want to know. It's time to talk to you.
All right, folks, good afternoon and welcome to the Tuesday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN. Let's take care of some housekeeping. You can join the conversation for the next hour at 508-871-7000. That's 508-871-7000. That will get you into the studio for two-way talk and conversation today back at HQ, flying the board. He'll get you set up and into the studio. Our text line is running at 617-297-8388, 617-297-8388. It appears on the screen here in real time. We try to work it into the conversation. And the station does stream 24/7 on the TuneIn app. So if you're going to listen that way, because it's a great way to do it, you can take us anywhere. You just download it if you don't have it on your phone. Thousands of other radio stations stream on TuneIn app as well. Punch in WCRN, see our cool logo. Do me a favor, hit the like button. We know you're there, and then we're easy to find. I do stream my show. Additionally, on my social media platforms at Joe Mangi Show, M-A-N-G-I, Joe Mangi Show, Facebook, X, Twitch TV, LinkedIn profile, and Rumble, as well as the station's Facebook page and YouTube page as well. So there's a lot of ways to listen and a lot of ways to participate in the show as well. So good afternoon, New England, and welcome to the Joe Mangiacotti Show, where we engage in common sense conversation for the common sense citizen. It is Tuesday, February 25th, 2025. And folks, we do have a lot to talk about today. So let me start by saying this. The battle for America is real. And it's happening right now. We have patriots fighting for this country, and we have people actively trying to tear it down from within. And if you needed any more proof of that, look no further than some of today's headlines. Dan Bongino takes a pay cut for patriotism. All right, let's talk about Dan Bongino, a man who's been on the front lines exposing corruption, standing up for the law enforcement community, and fighting for American values. So we learned this week that Bongino, who was making nearly $5 million, well, he did last year, $4.9 million last year, will now earn $221,000 as the deputy director of the FBI. And Pete Hegseth, another patriot, sees his salary drop from $2.3 million to $256,000. Folks, this tells you everything you need to know about these men. They aren't in it for the money. They're in it because they love the country. And compare that to the career bureaucrats and swamp preachers who sit in Washington lining their pockets while they sell America out to the highest bidder. They don't care about law and order. They don't care about you. They care about power. Dan Bongino has spent years exposing corruption in the FBI. And now as deputy director, he's going to clean house from the inside out. That's got the left, panicked. That's got the deep state terrified. And that's why this is the most important moment for law and order in years. So let's give some credit where it's due. President Donald J. Trump made the right call again. But let's be clear. Bongino and Hegseth are walking into a war zone. The FBI has been politicized, weaponized, and corrupted for years. The mission is clear: fix it or shut it down. Leaking ICE raids to protect criminals, that's treason. Now let's shift gears to the border, the law, the betrayal from within. See, we learned this week that DHS Secretary Kristi Noem, guess what? She's identified multiple leakers inside our own government, people who deliberately leaked an ICE raid to the media to protect illegal alien gang members. Remember that? They had to call off the raid because the media knew all about it, broadcast it. That's treason. Folks, let me be clear on that. It's treason. This government And these government employees, possibly FBI, DHS, or other agencies, leaked classified information so that criminals, rapists, and murderers could evade and escape arrest. Who do they work for? Because it sure the hell isn't you, the American citizen. And let's be honest, the deep state is real. These bureaucrats aren't just sitting behind desks pushing papers. They are actively working against the safety and security of citizens. And let's not forget that the Los Angeles Times, which gladly published this leaked information, knowing full well that it would allow criminals to evade law enforcement. They are complicit in this. Contributory. Kristi Noem isn't playing games. She's firing these people. She's investigating them, and she's using every tool she has to hold them accountable. And here's the thing. Trump's new policies are working. And despite what the Raging Cajun might say about his poll numbers going down and the Republican Party about to implode, facts just don't bear that out. Since his return to office, ICE has been able to go after violent criminals without restriction. We are finally seeing law and order return to immigration enforcement. Holmes addressed Boston's own police commissioner, who was doubling down on not cooperating with ICE. And Holmes, he addressed that. I believe it was in front of the CPAC crowd. And he said to him that he is coming to Boston and he's bringing hell with him. And now you've got all of the busy bees and mayors in towns around Boston, and Mayor Wu included, saying they're not intimidated and that they will fight this. Think about what they're doing. They're standing the ground, and the hill they're choosing to die on is protecting rapists, violent criminals, gang members who are pushing human trafficking and drugs in our communities. That's the position that they're taking. But of course, the radical left hates that Trump's policies are working. We're seeing protests in sanctuary cities, which still amuses the heck out of me, because there's really no technical or legal mechanism for that. Sure, a city council can vote themselves this status, but the supremacy clause still means federal law supersedes whatever they come up with. So they have these protests in these self-proclaimed sanctuary cities, people marching in the streets, not to demand safety for law-abiding citizens, but to defend criminals who have no right to be here in the first place. So here's the bottom line. You break the law, you get deported. That's how it's supposed to work. If you're an American citizen who leaks information to protect criminals, you should be sitting in a cell right next to them. Yes, you're not supposed to do that. You don't have to go out of your way to help, but you can't warn them, hide them, or give them aid. You're aiding and abetting a criminal. Folks, everything we're talking about today comes down to one fundamental question, right? Who is the country really for? Is it for law-abiding, tax-paying American citizens, or is it for criminals, illegal aliens, and corrupt bureaucrats who think they're above the law? And we've got patriots like Dan Bongino, Pete Hegseth, stepping up to fix our situations in our institutions. We've got leaders like Kristi Noem rooting out corruption and fighting back against the deep state. And we've got President Donald J. Trump bringing back law and order. But this fight isn't over. We still have corrupt politicians, deep state leakers, and a media that actively works against America. And that's where you come in, because it's time to take a stand. It's time to hold the left accountable. It's time to demand law and order in this country. And there is a different vibe and feeling. People who maybe were hesitant or quite frankly afraid to speak up before seem to be comfortable with doing that now. And that's what we're trying to do right here on AM 830, WCRN, and on the Joe Mangiacotti Show. So what say you? Let's hear from you. 508-871-7000. 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. Are the ICE leakers traitors who should be prosecuted? What say you? Will Don Bongino fix the FBI, or is the agency too far gone? And what does America First mean to you? It's your voice, your country, your fight. Lines are open and available. 508-871-7000. Don't forget that we do stream, or I stream my show on several social media, both the stations, which is WCRN 830 AM on Facebook, as well as our YouTube channel, and then my social media, which is Facebook and X at Joe Mangiacotti Show, MANGI, Twitch TV, LinkedIn profile, and Rumble in real time. So sometimes on Rumble, you load it up later. We actually are streaming it in real time. And then the shows are then actually loaded up, and you can watch them. They're on rotation, but on demand on the new streaming channel, Torch TV, who has recently merged with the AUN TV network. So there's, I don't know, it's 12 or 14 terrestrial towers, mostly in the northwest part of the country. But Torch TV, you can find that on your Roku, Fire Stick, or Smart TV. So it's really easy to get to. And please join us. Most people are watching. Actually, I was looking at the stats for people who have downloaded the podcast. Oh, that's the other thing. After the show airs, of course, it's available on the replay link at WCRNradio.com, but it's also distributed to wherever you get your podcast as a podcast. So Spotify, iHeartRadio, TuneIn Radio, Google Play, etc. So I looked at the stats earlier today and seeing the top states that download the podcast of this show. Massachusetts, obviously the highest with 67.48% of the downloads coming from Massachusetts. But then Pennsylvania is the second state with 12.2%. Rhode Island with 16.57%. New Jersey with 7.3%. California, 1.63% of downloads of the Joe Mangiacotti Show are coming out of California. I find that interesting that anyone in California even downloads it. And then New Hampshire is just under 1%. So that's an interesting breakdown, in my opinion, anyway. All right, we have a lot to talk about when we come back from our first break here on the Tuesday afternoon edition here of the Joe Mangiacotti Show, including an appeals court holding up a strange case here in Massachusetts. We'll talk about that, but the lines are open and available. 508-871-7000. That's 508-871-7000. All right, folks, stick with us. I'm back in 2 and 10.
Looking for guidance as you face a future on Social Security? It's hard to figure out on your own. But MedicareAdvisors.com is a completely independent insurance agency specializing in Medicare insurance planning. We work with the top insurance companies so we can offer our clients the best coverage for them. We design plans with a focus on low costs, which we combine with personalized insurance advice aimed at helping our clients make better informed decisions. Russ Swallow is a certified senior advisor and a licensed insurance advisor. He's been helping clients with their health insurance needs since 1970. And after a failed attempt at retirement, he created the Medicare Advisors in 2014. Russ concluded that since Medicare is health insurance, he might as well put his almost 50 years of health insurance experience to good use, as 75,000 people reach age 65 in Massachusetts every year, and they can use some help. Call Russ today at 508-831-0805. Put his years of personal experience to work for you as you try to unravel the complexities of Social Security.
Polar Park is the place to play, so treat yourself to a private suite at the best ballpark in AAA. Suite rentals are the best way to enjoy a fully catered and climate-controlled experience at the park. Whether you choose to watch the game from inside of the suite or out in your seats, it's the ultimate experience for a special occasion. Visit WooSox.com or call 508-500-8888 to reserve your suite today.
Divorce and remarriage. It's a controversial subject clearly addressed in the Bible. Each weekend, Pastor Ray McMahon shares the truth of God's Word on the unbreakable covenant of marriage during the Jesus is Our Shepherd broadcast. Don't miss this opportunity to learn God's instructions by listening to the Jesus is Our Shepherd broadcast each weekend on this station.
Tune in every Sunday at noon.
All right, folks, welcome back to the second segment here in the Tuesday afternoon edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN Radio Central from the center of the dial, the center of information in the center of New England, AM 830 WCRN. You can join the conversation at 508-871-7000. That's 508-871-7000. Lines are open and available today. We'll take it and get you set up. As I broadcast from the Cameo studios today. So Ted is back at HQ, and the text line is running at 617-297-8388. 617-297-8388. So there is a story here in Massachusetts, and I really want to get what you listeners are feeling about this one. If you haven't heard about it, the appeals court upholds a decision against the parents in a gender identity case. All right, folks, this is a big one. And how do we get here? It goes right to the heart of the parental rights government overreach and the role of public schools in shaping our kids' lives. We saw Glenn Youngkin pull out what was thought to be an impossible deed in becoming governor. Bill Maher, over the weekend, addressed this with somebody from Pod America or something. And he said, you know, you're going to the Democrat who's on this gender identity issue is saying, you're going to lose every election if you keep coming down on the wrong side and getting in between parents in the who decides what's best for my children argument. You think they would have learned the lesson. The parents don't feel the government is in charge of their children, or that they can do things to your children without telling you. When I was a kid, we were told not to keep secrets and not let people tell us we don't have to tell our parents about this. That was a big thing. Well, a federal appeals court just upheld a ruling against Massachusetts parents who sued their child's school for not informing them that their 11-year-old has adopted a new gender identity. Now, I'd like to know more details. I mean, is this a child that just was a tomboy or a little effeminate, or do they literally want to act like the opposite gender? Like, it doesn't get into that, but an 11-year-old. So Democrats have a problem with the young geniuses in Doge, but they think 11-year-olds and 12-year-olds can change their gender, that they're mature enough for that life-changing decision. Now, the school, Ludlow Public Schools, they followed a 2012 state policy that says schools should not inform parents about students' gender identity unless the student consents, even if the child is just 11 years old. First of all, the policy says should not. It doesn't say shall not. In legal terms, that's actually a pretty big distinction. But why in this particular topic or issue, subject that we're dealing with, does norms of the law, meaning under 18, you're a minor and your parents make your decisions, are they deciding they're exempt from the law? Common law and statute law, both, because it's their topic. So parental rights versus government control. So the case is about whether schools should have the authority to withhold information about a child's identity from their own parents. And shouldn't parents have the right to know what's happening in their child's life? And then the school's argument, safety and inclusivity. That's another buzzword we hear a lot, right? Inclusivity. Equity. The school claims their policy protects children from potential harm at home. See, I got to get in on this one for a second. Let me finish my thought on this. And creates a safe, inclusive environment, but shouldn't that be the parents' decision, not the schools? And I hear this argument for years from the pro-trans community about protecting a child from potential harm. So first of all, the number of citizens in our population who are transgender is extremely, like less than 1%. Now you're telling me that we have to change and infringe on parents' rights and common sense because out of that 1%, another fraction of that percent might have parents who don't like this idea. So everybody else in the world changes. I don't understand that. Woo! Explain it to me, 508-871-7000. The court's ruling parents' rights are not unlimited. Well, the court found that parents do not have the right to dictate every aspect of the child's education under the Due Process Clause. Basically, they're saying, if your kid is in public school, you don't get to call the shots. How's that sit with you? Let me take a pause and go to the phones because Gary's been waiting patiently on the phone. So, Gary, what say you?
Well, I got to tell you, first of all, your child is exhibiting a psychological condition. So you're saying that as parents, you're going to be kept in the dark. You're not going to be able to make informed decisions about how to treat them psychologically. I mean, if your kid was exhibiting psychopathic tendencies, is it the school's responsibility to go and tell the parents? Of course it is.
Look what happened with the case in Butler, Gary. Right?
Yep.
When the teenager took a shot at President Trump and actually hit him. So where was what's going on there? They want to hold the parents responsible, but what if all of the things, the inconsistencies or the red flags that kid was showing was only in school and the parents were unaware? Does it fall to the school?
Exactly. So what the Massachusetts Supreme Court is saying is only certain things they can share when it comes to the children. You know what I'm saying?
Like I said, their really topic, their subject, because this is our topic and subject. We're gonna exempt this from the law. It's the same when these blue city councils say we're going to be a sanctuary city. Well, you really can't pick and choose laws that you want to follow. And the Supremacy Clause puts the federal enforcement of illegals above your little vote, quite honestly.
Yep. And I believe that these parents are going to have to go to the Supreme Court of the United States. And as usual, these liberal courts are going to have to get slapped so hard it brings them into next Sunday. It's just absolutely ridiculous that you're going to pick and choose which rights I have as a parent and which responsibilities I'm going to have as a parent. Because like you just said, suppose for a moment that kid you have a child in school and they have anger issues, which you don't see at home, and you see behaviors that you don't see at home. You didn't bother to tell me the kid picks up a gun one day and goes in, and then you're going to sue, the state's going to sue me because I never had the kid treated. You can't have it both ways. You have to be able to say parental rights trump all. And unless you can show that there is some criminal action against that child, whether it be some form of abuse or something else, that's different. But you have to be able to demonstrate that in a court of law before you can take, this kind of unilateral action.
See, Gary, what really that comes down to, right? Let me interject here. What that comes down to is some of these activists who are pushing all the transgender activism and rights and policies, some of them had parents who didn't accept their transition or didn't accept that they were the opposite sex in a body type of thing. So they had, maybe the parents spent money and time sending them to camps or religious leaders or something, right? So they didn't have a wonderful childhood because the parents weren't accepting it. So they're projecting that onto every situation and projecting that every parent is as bad as their parents were to them. And that is
Exactly.
total judgment without evidence or like it's just you're making your issues and projecting your bad situation and your parents onto everyone else, and that's just not how we do things or shouldn't be doing things.
Well, let's suppose for a moment that let's take the leftist argument. Well, these children who don't who aren't diagnosed become suicidal. They become, if this kid is hiding this issue at school and the parents never know about it, and eventually that kid commits suicide, are the teachers going to stand there and go, yes, we're 100% responsible because we couldn't be bothered to tell the parents that this was an ongoing issue? So again, they lose on every front.
Mm-hmm.
This idea that the Supreme Court of Massachusetts, is even in the ballpark on this one is so far out of whack. It's like this is why people voted the way they voted in November, because they're tired of this crap. They really are. It's the end of the road, and that's I think the biggest fear is that if the federal government ever gets straightened out, these state houses and these states like Massachusetts, you better watch out, because that kind of a movement is probably coming next to your state house, where they're going to start cleaning house and they're going to start bringing back common sense, and they're going to start, having going back to the old way of doing things when it comes to certain, rights and abilities of parents and teachers and everything else,
Absolutely. Gary, thank you for the call. Good point. Good call. Always appreciate you listening. Yeah, look, at Massachusetts, right, we've had some of these, you'd like to meet some of these judges and, over a cup of coffee, maybe a cocktail, and say, could you tell me how your mind works? Because remember Judge Shelley Joseph there? She's the one who told the bailiff to bring the illegal bad actor guy, knowing that she wouldn't let ICE in the courtroom. She made them wait outside the courtroom. So they said, fine, when you're done with this, we'll take him into custody. We have an ICE detainer. She knew this, so she had the bailiff take him out through the judge's chambers, not through her chambers, through that door and out the back of the courthouse to evade ICE. And she got kicked off the bench. She was about to go to jail, and Biden stepped in and stopped it all. She should have gone to jail. She should have been removed from the bench, disbarred, never allowed to practice law again, being an officer of the court, committing that kind of crime. And she should have done jail time for that. And it's going to take Tom Homan or Kristi Noem or somebody else, Pam Bondi, getting a referral from one of these at the Department of Justice, and then bringing charges against one of these podunk mayors or somebody to say, you can't do that. You can't be a traitor. And even in 2025, you can't be a traitor. Folks, we're going to take our mid-show pause here on the Tuesday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN. Back in 2 and 10, folks.
Time now for the forecast from the Boston Independence Group Weather Center. Call Jerry Doherty today at 877-772-1776. Retirement is within reach.
I'm meteorologist Sherry Spearn. Here's the latest Boston 25 weather on Radio 830 WCRN. We're keeping it mild today with highs around 50 degrees and mostly cloudy skies. A little spot shower may pass through your town or city this evening, but overall lots of dry weather to enjoy this mild forecast. We've got temperatures tomorrow still near 50 degrees. It's going to be much brighter. Wednesday is the pick of the week. I'm meteorologist Sherry Spearn. You can hear Boston 25 live for the morning drive weekdays on AM 830 WCRN.
Headline news, weather, and local information central to your day on Radio Central 830 WCRN.
Looking for guidance as you face a future on Social Security? It's hard to figure out on your own. The MedicareAdvisors.com is a completely independent insurance agency specializing in Medicare insurance planning. We work with the top insurance companies so we can offer our clients the best coverage for them. We design plans with a focus on low costs, which we combine with personalized insurance advice aimed at helping our clients make better informed decisions. Russ Swallow is a certified senior advisor and a licensed insurance advisor. He's been helping clients with their health insurance needs since 1970. And after a failed attempt at retirement, he created the Medicare Advisors in 2014. Russ concluded that since Medicare is health insurance, he might as well put his almost 50 years of health insurance experience to good use, as 75,000 people reach age 65 in Massachusetts every year, and they can use some help. Call Russ today at 508-831-0805. Put his years of personal experience to work for you as you try to unravel the complexities of Social Security.
All right, folks, welcome back to the second half of the Tuesday afternoon edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show here on AM 830 WCRN. The lines are open and available, 508-871-7000, 508-871-7000. That's how you get into the studio for two-way talk and conversation. Let's go back to the phones. Ken is waiting patiently. Hey, Ken, what say you?
Good afternoon, Joe. Thank you for carrying out this public service that larger institutions not only refuse to, they tell the opposite story. It's all a cover-up. You know, there's not a single Boston station that would tell this story. We all know that. There's not a single station in New England. I know what the New Hampshire station was like 40 years ago. Well, these things weren't going on, but they're taking the opposite side in what was previously a red state, where everything is upside down, including to the point where literally schools have John go to school and, shh, John, you're Jane while you're in school. Don't tell your parents.
They provide like the facility for them to come to school, Ken, and change at school. And all the teachers will use the opposite pronoun. They treat them in these are 10, 12-year-old kids. And then they allow them space to change back into the clothes that they left the house with. Guys, that has gone beyond accepting their decision as a school to actually conspiring against the parents. You're conning the parents at this point. And all the teachers and administrators involved in that should immediately lose their jobs, in my opinion. They shouldn't be allowed near children, period.
But if all of the powers, particularly of the state of Massachusetts, are all aligned against what you just said, then this needs to be taken to a higher authority, doesn't it?
Well, I don't know who these parents, I don't know what their means are, but I could see this. I mean, come on, the Massachusetts Supreme Judicial Court, we know what kind of judges get on the bench in Massachusetts. Just look at how Massachusetts votes every presidential election. So it's going to have to go to the federal district, and eventually, maybe, it will end up at SCOTUS.
Well, I don't know what the legal aspect of what's happening. I'm just saying we're already politically winning on the sports issue we talked about yesterday. There's this issue too. I mean, the bottom line is that the local news stations and papers aren't going to talk the talk. The new alternatives, and including talk radio, need to beat the drum senselessly because it's a loser for those who are carrying it out and a winner for we the people.
You know, Ken,
and we can't back off.
I can't help but wonder, the parents who are all okay with this decision and pro hiding things from the parents and all of this, A, do they have children? And if they have children, are they okay with this policy? Because what happens when the child does something or wants to do something that the parents wouldn't be okay with, but the school enables them, assists them, and keeping it from their parents, hiding something from their parents, but they don't agree with this thing. So do their parental rights now kick in, but they don't kick in for the other parent? Because again, if it's the left's topic, if it's the left's issue, they make up their own rules. They pick and choose if they follow the law. So what about those parents that are okay with the school having this power right now? But what happens if the school is helping their child hide something from their parents and they don't like it? Do they get to
Joe,
say,
I don't think
now parental rights kick in when I want them to, but not for you when I don't want them to?
Joe, I don't think it's that simple. I think if you had a secret ballot, even in Massachusetts, you would get 70-80% on our side.
Oh, we do.
The problem is
that's the thing, Ken.
Hang on.
This is an 80-20 thing. So the question
Yeah, but wait
I
a
keep asking is, how does 20% of the people keep getting policies like this passed? When I'm venturing to say at least 8 out of 10 parents, if asked, should the schools be able to hide things from your child from you, and can the school deciding what your child can and can't do supersede your authority as parents? How many parents are actually going to say, yeah, the school should be able to tell me how I can raise my child?
It's the power of intimidation. There are thousands, if not 10 or hundreds of thousands of parents who know this is going on and don't like it, but they're not willing to confront the powers of the state.
Yep. Now,
And
do you think
there
that's
needs to be
changing,
critical
Ken?
mass to get to that point.
Do you think that's changing? Do you think that the Trump effect, because you're seeing it in Hollywood, you're seeing it in corporations, your Hollywood elites and Diamond, right? Jamie Dimon, and you've got CEOs. Look at what Elon Musk has done. I mean, they're speaking out now, whereas a year ago or 4 years ago, they wouldn't have, right? And all that is good for evil to flourish is good men do nothing.
Exactly. You know what the critical next step is? Is linking those who are disgusted with what's going on with minority groups, particularly black groups, who the left thinks they own. And yet you ask 9 out of 10 black men on the street about this issue. They're on our side. They're probably on a race basis more on our side than Caucasian. In fact, I can guarantee it in liberal domains. Because the people who are leading this march many times are white liberal women.
That is so true. Isn't that,
who used to be for women's rights.
With the, what is it? The yoga pants and the Stanley Cup. I talked to my sisters and they're like, yes, all the moms that they see in Natick and in Framingham, they're all with the Lululemons and the Stanley Cups, and they're so righteous and feel that they're just so correct on social justice and what they're going to do. And I'm sorry, that just sounds like Biden saying, if you don't vote for me, you ain't black, and lecturing a black or the black community about that.
And here, let me introduce another massive idea. I know it'll do harm, because is there a state with a greater proportion of people employed or going to colleges in the country? But you know what?
Yeah.
That's where this is all coming from.
Yeah.
That's the nexus. The word gender didn't exist 80 years ago. They created it out of whole cloth. And they're the ones pushing it. Well, if you stop sending your kids to these colleges, that's a good first start.
Well, Ken, I was reading an article the other day about this, that the applications, right, for some of these colleges, and they tend to be more in the southern states, that were used to be the university that, if you had a pulse, you could kind of get in there. Now they're getting like 90,000 applications, which they've never gotten before, because parents saw what went on at these Ivy League and sought after schools, whether it was MIT or we saw her in New York. And they're saying, that's not what I want to send my child to. So they're sending him to, some of the, I don't like to use the term lesser schools, but you know what I mean, that weren't as sought after, and get their educations there where that nonsense isn't going on there. And to your point about 80 years ago, that didn't exist. 8 years ago somewhere, 8 days ago somewhere, some of these terms didn't exist. But we seem, and I've been asking this question for a while, guys, why do we accept when they start telling us that words that we have used for thousands of years, maybe even hundreds of years, now have a different meaning? It's very Orwellian that now we have to, that a male and a female means anybody can be a male and a female. Whereas I still would make the distinction that they can call themselves a female, say a transgender female, but they are actually a biological male identifying as a female. And that we seem to accept this on whole as a society, that somebody can change the meaning of words and we can't stick to the words we have. And they will cancel us if we decide to use the original meaning and in the original way it was meant to be used. That we have to change our vocabulary and we have to accept the new meaning of words. Look what they're doing with inseminated person instead of mother. These are words. This is asinine. And I say the answer to this is don't change. Use the words that you know the meaning of. Because if you go along with this charade, eventually there'll be a generation raised, and that's what they're taught and introduced with those words. And words like mother and father and family will disappear, Ken.
Well, they chant defund the police. We should chant defund the Ivies.
Well, I think Trump actually has made comments about this. Why are some of these private schools getting so much federal money when they absolutely are not following the law when you get down to it? Look what's going on here in Boston with this was it Boston? Who was the governor? Maine. I'm sorry, Maine. Right, the governor in Maine went at it with Trump the other day because she's not going to follow, and it's not his executive order. Let me make that clear, because I think people got that confused that she's not going to follow no, she's not following Title IX, which is a law. She said, I'm going to follow the federal law, and Trump's point was, this is the federal law. And if you don't follow the federal law, meaning no discrimination against females in sports, you will lose $250 million of federal money. Do you think the people of Maine, and if you do that same thing, Ken, that ballot, it's an 80-20 issue in Maine too, regardless of how they voted in there. Thank you for the call. We're against the clock. Always appreciate it, Ken. Good call. So Title IX was put in to create female sports. And regardless of what you tried to tell us all, a biological male certainly can identify as a female, but is still a biological male and should not be playing sports with biological females. They can get hurt, and you're taking away a lot of their futures. All right, stick with us. We'll come back for the third and final segment on the Tuesday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN. Back in 2 and 10, folks.
Looking for guidance as you face a future on Social Security? It's hard to figure out on your own. The MedicareAdvisors.com is a completely independent insurance agency specializing in Medicare insurance planning. We work with the top insurance companies so we can offer our clients the best coverage for them. We design plans with a focus on low costs, which we combine with personalized insurance advice aimed at helping our clients make better informed decisions. Russ Swallow is a certified senior advisor and a licensed insurance advisor. He's been helping helping clients with their health insurance needs since 1970. And after a failed attempt at retirement, he created the Medicare Advisors in 2014. Russ concluded that since Medicare is health insurance, he might as well put his almost 50 years of health insurance experience to good use, as 75,000 people reach age 65 in Massachusetts every year, and they can use some help. Call Russ today at 508-831-0805. Put his years of personal experience to work for you as you try to unravel the complexities of Social Security.
Looking for a fuel and food stop that truly stands out? Experience the Yatco difference. At Yatco, we're dedicated to bringing you the best customer service, the highest quality products, and a commitment to making your life on the go easier. From top quality fuel to freshly stocked snacks and essentials, Yatco has you covered. Yatco has 15 convenient locations across central Massachusetts, and now our newest spot at 75 Quonsigamut Ave in Worcester. For Yatco rewards, simply download the Yatco app and sign up. Friendly, clean, local, and always convenient. Make Yatco your favorite food and fuel stop. Stop by Yatco food and fuel stations today and experience the Yatco difference. Yatco, where every stop keeps you going.
All right, folks, welcome back to the fourth and final segment here of the Tuesday afternoon edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN. And you can join the conversation for the remaining hour here at 508-871-7000, 508-871-7000. And don't forget, we are streaming on my social media platforms, Facebook, X, Twitch TV, LinkedIn profile, and of course, Rumble. We got a few people viewing it right now. And just going back to what Ken was talking about New Hampshire, I find it interesting that the number of downloads of the podcast of this show are higher in California than they are in New Hampshire. That's interesting. All right, 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. I wanted to make a comment about Musk's test for federal workers, okay? They're making a lot of to-do about this email, right? So let's talk about this bombshell that dropped over the weekend, because Elon Musk with Doge under Trump's administration, who is absolutely in a real position with real authority, and it cracks me up that he's not an elected bureaucrat. The bureaucrat by definition isn't elected, you jamoke. There are millions of bureaucrats who look at your information and deal with decisions that affect you and your business every day, but you don't have a problem with them, do you? So they sent out this email to millions of federal workers, right, demanding a list of their accomplishments. And they just said, hey, give us 5 bullet points, 5 talking points, 5 things you did last week. Now, do you think that Elon really wanted to know those 5 things, or he's going to read them all? And if you didn't understand what this was, maybe you shouldn't have the job. It was to see how many people responded. It was to see if you actually are working. Did you read your email? You could have responded anything from see me to I'll get back to you, or start the list off with I responded to this email, if you get what I mean. But that's what he was doing, because now there's concern, I guess is the way to put it, that there are actually fictional people. There are people drawing a paycheck, a federal paycheck, yet they don't exist. That is a little concerning, folks. We know that there are no-show jobs for Uncle Guido and Vito. That happens in the unions and on the docks. We get that. But in federal government? So this is where it gets interesting. Musk says this is a litmus test to see if government employees are actually engaged in daily tasks, or if they even exist. In other words, are taxpayers funding ghost employees? No-show jobs, a reality in the bloated federal government. It's a possibility. I have a friend in the mortgage business, and he had a process that when he needed to hire a staff person, whether it was a receptionist, a bookkeeper, or social media, whatever it was. When they ran the ad, he said, put instructions to call a number and do these things. And the number was set up specifically for this with their other instructions. And it was a simple weeding out process. If the person couldn't follow the very basic, simple instructions in the employment ad to call a number and leave certain information, they were already weeded out. They weren't even going to get to a callback or the next step. So this litmus test is to see, did you even acknowledge the email? They're thinking that these people, or they're spinning it, that they needed to justify their existence. I think we'll get to that. I also look at it, or I would have looked at it as a federal employee, as an opportunity. I would have sent back paragraphs, if not pages, of every project I've working on, or every idea I've ever had. I spent a great deal of time thinking about this that I pitched to my boss 6 months ago, and they think it's a stupid idea, but here's why it's not. I mean, you could have taken that to separate yourself too. So government bloat and accountability. The federal government has grown exponentially with layers of bureaucracy. And this simple email request could expose who's actually working and who's just collecting a paycheck. In Musk's approach, hardcore efficiency. We know this. Look at the way he runs his companies. Look what he did when he bought Twitter. Almost 80% out the door. Doesn't change the outcome. And that's the key word between the public and the private sector, is outcome. I was watching Jamie Dimon, JP Morgan, being interviewed, and he was talking about, they have to come back to work, right? We're very familiar, right? This is what Trump and Musk are saying too about federal employees. And JP Morgan, Jamie Dimon's saying, hey, you got to come back to the office. But he used the word while he was talking about outcome. And that's the difference. In the private sector, everything you're doing, from cutting costs and being efficient, is to see what the outcome is and whether it's all justified. That's not how government works, or at least they evaluate what the outcome is in different terms, because it's not a business. So this tactic mirrors Musk's leadership style at Twitter, now X, where he cut staff massively and demanded results. Can the same approach work in government? And then there's the union backlash. The American Federation of Government Employees, AFGE, calls this, get this, quote, cruel and disrespectful. Cruel. Somebody needs to give them a dictionary to see what cruel, the definition of that is. But let's be real. Shouldn't employees be able to list what they accomplish? And not even everything. It just said, give us 5 things. Just 5 things. Can most of us list 5 things that we did in the last couple of hours? No? And then fraud allegations. Musk is claiming there are non-existent employees, dead people still on the payroll, and massive waste. Could this expose outright fraud in the federal workforce? If we have people still collecting Social Security checks at 150, 180, 250, 300 years old, you don't think it's impossible that a federal employee who doesn't exist anymore, who may not be alive anymore, if nobody notified HR, payroll, whatever, the AFGE, that the money would still continue to be deposited into an account that maybe the spouse has joint access to? You get where it all goes. You figure it out. So the Trump factor. Trump is all in on cutting government waste, is he not? And making the system more lean, efficient, and accountable. He wants to keep the best, fire the worst. He made hundreds of millions of dollars on the reality show The Apprentice on this premise alone. And for us electing a president who had an incredibly successful show called The Apprentice, whose key phrase, or what's the term we call it, the catchphrase was, "You're fired," that he would fire the dead weight in federal government. We can't pretend we didn't know that this is what he would do, especially in the second term where no re-election is possible. But he has this resistance from within. Some federal agencies, like the FBI and State Department, are pushing back. Cash just took over, folks. All right? And Rubio just became the Secretary of State too a few weeks ago. But they're telling their employees not to respond, or that the department will handle it. So what are they trying to do? Hide their inefficiency? Are they afraid to be looked at or evaluated? Whereas we see some of the Trump employees, right? Sean, was it Duffy? I forget what he's secretary of. But I think his response out there he posted was his 5 things. I saved, $110 million by eliminating waste and fraud in my department, which is a pretty good one of 5 things to list. So the bigger picture, this could reshape how government operates. If thousands of workers fail to respond or let go, we will see leaner, more efficient federal systems, no? Or is the legal battle waiting to happen on all of this? And apparently now, at least I caught Trump saying in some clip or an interview, that there'll be a second chance to follow up to the email. But if you don't respond to the email, you assume you don't exist and you're not there. So, you'll be let go, or we'll start to let you go. So at the end of the day, we, the taxpayers, are footing the bill for all these federal workers. Every penny they make, every benefit they have is because of the money that comes from businesses and individuals in form of taxes, right? So if an employee can't provide a simple list of accomplishments, what are we paying them to do then? What are we paying them for? What's your job? So what say you? This is a much needed shakeup of government. Or is this overreach? What say you on this? There are other topics I wanted to get to that we don't have time to get to. One of them is just real quick. Rudy Giuliani's victory against lawfare in the 2020 election truth. I think I'll save a lot of this to dive into this tomorrow. But he has successfully satisfied the $148 million judgment against him. And this has to do with those women in Georgia, Freeman and Moss. They were the ones, remember, we saw the video. They pulled the suitcases of ballots from under the table and they were running them through the machines multiple times, right on the video. Put it through the machine, take it out the other end, put it through again. Same ballot. But there's never really been a real legitimate investigation into the 2020 election, has there? But Freeman and Moss were caught on video pulling the suitcase out, running through. Why has there never been a serious investigation into these actions? Instead of examining what happened, the establishment labeled anyone asking questions as conspiracy theorists. But unfortunately, folks, we're up against the clock and wrapping up the Tuesday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN. I'm Joe Mangiacotti. Follow me at Joe Mangi Show, M-A-N-G-I, Joe Mangi Show. You can watch this anytime on my social media, Rumble, or go to Torch TV for that matter. All right, folks, I'll be back tomorrow afternoon at 1 o'clock. Joe out.